Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, I'm Chef Ken, and this is Cooking with Chef Ken. Today we're going to be working on some holiday appetizers. Now, for the theme for this, I decided a nice thing to do was pick some things we can get a double duty out of. We can use them for both appetizers and desserts with little modifications. Three things that work ideal for that are a basic cheesecake recipe, which I'm going to make a sweet version with as a white chocolate cheesecake, and using that exact same base, we're going to make a savory version, which is a Gorgonzola Leek Cheesecake. So for our first course, we're going to be working on the savory cheesecake. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start working on the crust. For that crust, for both cheesecakes, we're going to use a very similar crust. We're going to start off with some crackers. In this case, I just used some nice whole wheat crackers. Give us a nice hearty flavor that will work for either. And we're going to start with about 2.5 cups of crackers after they're crunched. So let's figure approximately what we're going to need here. Okay, we'll go ahead and drop those into a plastic bag. This is the way I prefer doing it. You could use a food processor, something like that. Then they tend to be real fine like that if you like a more fine crust. I like things with just a little more texture to them. So we can roll these crackers out like that. Want to add about a 1/2 cup crushed walnuts to that. So we'll go ahead and dump some in there. Next, we're going to take a 1/2 stick of butter. And now I'm going to go ahead and slice this up real nice. Kind of cut it into chunks to make it easier to incorporate into our crust. Drop them in there. And we'll go ahead and work that butter into the crust till it starts hanging together. Now you don't want it to, one thing you don't want to do is melt the butter, because then it doesn't make the crust stick together quite right. You know, it'll just make the crust greasy, basically. So you want it where you get to the point where it kind of clumps together like this, but it's still real loose. You don't want a real overworked, hard crust. So right about now we've got what we want. Like I said, we can press it together. Take our 9-inch spring form pan. Something I like to do to help make it easier to get the cheesecake out of is, I'll go ahead and take some parchment paper. Go ahead and cut it out so it fits the bottom of the pan. Like that. I'm still going to go ahead and lightly butter the pan just a little bit, because some of the stuff will make it around the parchment paper. Plus, when I put the sides on, it'll help the parchment stick to the pan a little better. Now I'll go ahead and cut a collar real quick. Kind of stick that on. As you see, you have this then, which will make your final product easier to remove from the mold. Now we're going to take about half of this crumb mixture here, sprinkle it on the bottom of the pan. And we're going to go ahead and press it down. Get a nice coating like this. Bottom of the pan. And we'll set that aside. Take a small skillet here. Put a little bit of butter in it. We can start working on the filling. I'm going to take one leek. Cut the ends off here. Now this I save to use for if I'm making some stock or broth, something like that. But the part you use to cook with is just this, basically the white and light green parts where it's tender. I'm going to go ahead and slice it. They can have. You got to look at them and see exactly how. Some of them are cleaner than other ones. I gave these a good rinse and back, and there's not a lot of sand in them. But some of them actually you need to almost cut and then rinse because there's so much sand and grit in them. So I'm going to go ahead and start that put that in the skillet, start to saute it. Now I'm going to get my cream cheese. And we can start working on the cheesecake base. Start by measuring out 2.5 cups of cream cheese. Press it in there. Now when we do this here, if you have a scale, we've found that 1 cup of cream cheese weighs about 8.8 ounces. So you can go ahead and measure it out that way too. So we've measured 2.5 cups of cream cheese. Now ideally we'd like this cream cheese to be at room temperature. When we start mixing it, it helps mix the ingredients more uniformly. Okay, so then we're going to put 5 eggs in there. I'm used to being in a kitchen where I'm surrounded with everything I need pretty much. So it's So we have 5 eggs. Thank you, sir. 2 yolks and 2 teaspoons of flour. We're going to try to spread around. Hit and toss those leeks around a little bit. Now we're going to start mixing this on low, and we want to get it pretty uniform. We want to avoid getting a lot of lumps in the cream cheese. While we continue to cook those leeks, we've lightly caramelized the leeks, and we got them nice and brown. But we're also trying to cook them all the way through, of course, for this cheesecake. Up just a little bit. The one thing we want to watch is working this too much, because if we work it too much, we're going to whip too much air into it, and that's what causes your cheesecakes to crack. They rise too much from having too many air bubbles in them, and then they crack, and then they fall back down, and they still taste good, but they don't look as good because of the air bubbles. So we want to watch how much air we work into the cheesecake. That's why we're going to mix it on slow. And that's why it's also better to start with the room temperature cream cheese, because then that way you don't have to work it as much to distribute it through the mixture. And then we're also going to add our 1/3 cup of cream. Okay, now we've incorporated our base ingredients together. What we have now is our cheesecake base here. And in keeping with the theme of this, what I'm going to actually do is take half of this base here, take it out and make it into the Gorgonzola Leek Cheesecake, and we can use the second half of this base to make the sweet cheesecake later on, the white chocolate cheesecake. So I'm just going to approximate half of this base right here. We're going to go ahead and add our leeks. They've been sauteed. We're going to grate our gorgonzola with a grater. And I believe the recipe calls for 3/4 cup, so we're actually going to use half of that because we're doing a half recipe basically. So we use 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons. Gorgonzola is a little more mild. And there's actually 2 forms of gorgonzola. There's the sweet gorgonzola and the dry gorgonzola, basically. And this one here is the drier variety. But it's a much more mild cheese and a little more rich in some of the blue, but more of a mild flavor. So it's not overwhelming. There's a lot of people that would like gorgonzola that really wouldn't care for a regular blue. So we're going to go ahead and mix that in. We're going to add our thyme leaves and a little salt. Mix it all in. And we're going to go ahead and put that into our prepared spring farm pan. Yeah, actually the wine is kind of, it's not a really necessary ingredient, but it does, the acid from the wine helps bring out the gorgonzola flavor a little better. And that's where its value is. So now we've spread that on the bottom of the pan. We have something that kind of resembles this. It's a little bit lumpy, but that's okay. It'll actually, when it bakes, it'll come out fine. It'll all incorporate. And that's ready for the oven, which unfortunately we don't have oven out here, but we can pretend it gets popped in the oven. This, by the way, is what the finished product comes out like before we cut it. And as you see, because of the parchment, it comes right up off the base and everything. The parchment really is a advantage, I think, when you're doing stuff like this. Plus, if you notice, the sides don't get as dark. You have that insulation between the metal and the sides of the pan a little bit. And a lot of cheesecake recipes will call for the cheesecakes to be cooked in water baths. But I find if you use the parchment and if you cook them on a relatively low temperature, like 300, I believe is what I have in the recipe, you really don't need the water baths, as long as you're careful when you're monitoring it. And you, I think the other thing is also not making them real thick. You know, if you use that base, there's other savory cheesecakes you can make. I put some wild mushrooms and Marsala wine in them, which gives another interesting flavor. You can use different kinds of cheese in them. Borzen's a real good cheese in it. Another thing that makes an absolutely excellent cheesecake is the substitute smoked salmon for the Gorgonzola. And that really makes a wonderful cheesecake. You can also put peppers in them at times too. You can make a really nice, or artichokes, or peppers and artichokes, something like this. Some really nice things you can do with these, with that cheesecake base, using that same base. And once again, you can make a pretty big batch of that base and then cut parts off of it and, you know, make 2 or 3 different varieties if that's what you want.